Mother has been stealing money from family members.
Hi everyone.
I never thought I would find myself writing a post like this, but here we are. I recently discovered something that has shaken me to my core and left me questioning so much about my family. My own mother, my mother, has been stealing money from her grandchildren, including my children and my siblings' children. Yes, you read that right. She has been taking Christmas and birthday gifts, money meant for her own grandchildren. This all came to light on Christmas Day when my family gathered at my sister's house to celebrate. It was the usual chaotic, noisy, and joyful holiday celebration, with kids running around and adults trying to keep up with the madness. After the festivities, we headed home, and I thought nothing of it, until a message popped up in the family group chat later that evening. It was from my mother, asking if anyone had seen some envelopes that she claimed had gone missing. She mentioned that the envelopes were hidden in her room and contained cash gifts meant for my nieces, who are 8 and 13 years old. Her message left me uneasy. When I got home, I decided to double-check the gifts my kids had received, just to make sure nothing had been misplaced in the commotion. That is when I noticed something horrifying. Money was missing from my daughter's envelope as well. I had been keeping it in my purse during the day to ensure it stayed safe amid the chaos, but even that precaution was not enough. Feeling uneasy, I mentioned the missing money to my sister and asked her to let me know if anyone else noticed anything unusual. Little did I know my sister was already piecing together a much bigger story. The next day, she told me that our mother had confessed to stealing the money. All in all, close to $300 was stolen from her own 3 granddaughters. When confronted, my mother gave an excuse that honestly baffled me. She claimed she needed the money for medical reasons. Now, we live in a country with free healthcare, so that explanation already felt suspicious. But then she started rambling about how she had spent her best years raising us, her 7 children, and now has nothing to show for it because we have all moved on with our lives. I could barely wrap my head around her logic. Raising your children is something you do out of love, not as an investment that should pay dividends later in life. And even if she was struggling financially, she could have just asked us for help. We are all adults now, aged between 25 and 40, with jobs, homes, and families of our own. But no, she felt entitled to take from her grandchildren instead. My father, who still works hard to support her despite her never having worked a day in her life, was mortified when we told him. He immediately reimbursed the stolen money out of his own pocket and apologized on her behalf. While I appreciated the gesture, it was not what we were looking for. We wanted her to take responsibility for her actions and apologize herself. Instead, she continued to act as though she had done nothing wrong and refused to return the money. Things only got worse as more details came to light. We found out that this was not an isolated incident. Over the years, she had stolen money from other family members, even visitors in my brother's home. When we confronted her again, she claimed she needed $600 for a breast biopsy. As someone who works in healthcare, I started asking her basic questions. Where was she going for the procedure? What tests or scans had been done so far? She could not answer a single one. On top of that, she gave conflicting stories, telling one person she needed $600 and another that she needed $1,000. None of it added up. Our father offered to take her to the supposed biopsy appointment, but she declined, claiming she had already arranged a ride. When we pressed for details, she shut down the conversation. Her vagueness only confirmed our suspicions that she was lying. At this point, my siblings and I have decided to limit contact with her. We are working with our dad to ensure she gets the medical and psychological help she clearly needs. I have even suggested a dementia assessment and counseling to address whatever underlying issues might be driving her behavior. But no matter what comes of this, we all agree on one thing: stealing from our children is absolutely inexcusable. We cannot and will not brush this under the rug. This whole situation has been heartbreaking. The woman who raised us, who we trusted implicitly, has betrayed not just us, but her innocent grandchildren. I do not know if we will ever fully rebuild that trust. For now, we are focused on protecting our kids and supporting each other as siblings. Thank you for reading and letting me get this off my chest. I hope all of you are having a better holiday season than we are. Hug your loved ones tight and take care. Update 1. Hey again, everyone. It's been 3 days since my last post, and things have gotten even messier, if that's even possible. After talking it over with my sister, we've decided this situation can't just be swept under the rug. It's too big for that. So we're pulling the whole family together, me, my siblings, and our dad, for a face-to-face meeting with my mom this weekend. Let me tell you, things are tense. Dad already tried having a private talk with her, hoping maybe she'd show some regret or at least admit what she did was wrong. But nope. She's still acting like the victim here. Her excuses are all over the place. First, it was about her health. Now it's shifted to how she gave the best years of her life raising us. And apparently that means she's entitled to help herself to whatever she wants. It's mind-boggling. What's worse, my dad let it slip that this isn't the first time she's done something like this. Apparently, my mom has been taking money from his wallet for years without asking, just casually helping herself like it's no big deal. He never called her out on it because, in his words, it wasn't worth the fight. Hearing that honestly made my blood boil. How long has this been going on? What else has she been doing that we don't know about? The family meeting feels like it's about more than just the stolen Christmas money now. It's about setting boundaries, getting answers, and trying to figure out how we move forward. We're all preparing in our own ways, and honestly, it feels like we're gearing up for a battle. I've been talking with my siblings to make sure we're all on the same page because the last thing we need is this turning into a screaming match or getting completely derailed. One thing we keep coming back to is, what's the goal here? Are we looking for an apology, some kind of plan to make amends, or is it just about calling her out and making it clear this can't happen again? I don't even know anymore. A part of me wants to hear her say she's sorry, but another part knows that's probably never going to happen. Not genuinely, anyway. There's also this sinking feeling that if she's been taking money from my dad and now her grandkids, where does it stop? My sister and I started thinking back to all those little moments that didn't quite add up over the years. Like how she'd randomly have extra cash when we knew money was tight, or how things would go missing during family get-togethers. At the time, we wrote it off as bad memory or coincidence, but now it's hard not to connect the dots. The hardest part is wrapping my head around how she can do this to her own family. If she really needed help, all she had to do was ask. Between the 7 of us, someone would have stepped up, but instead, she chose to take from her grandkids, kids who trust her and love her without question. That's what hurts the most. And then there's Dad. He's trying to fix everything like he always does, but you can see this is tearing him up. He's always worked so hard to provide for her and us, and now he's stuck in the middle, apologizing for things that aren't his fault. He even paid back the stolen money, which was kind of him, but also not the point. We don't need him to clean up her mess. We need her to take responsibility. This weekend is gonna be a mess. I can feel it. My mom's the kind of person who hates being cornered, so I don't think this is going to go smoothly. Honestly, I don't even know what a good outcome looks like at this point. But we have to try. Ignoring this isn't an option, not when trust is already hanging by a thread. I'll update again after the meeting and let you all know how it goes. For now, I'm just trying to keep my cool and focus on what's best for my kids and my family. Fingers crossed it doesn't turn into a complete disaster. Wish us luck. Update 2. It has been 5 weeks since my first post and the family meeting we had. Let's just say it was exactly as messy and uncomfortable as I expected it to be. If anything, it left us with more questions than answers. So here is how it went down. All 7 of us siblings, plus Dad, met at my sister's house. Mom walked in like she was preparing for an ambush, arms crossed, lips pursed, and already on the defensive. You could practically feel the tension in the air. We tried to start things calmly, laying out why we were there, the stealing, the lies, and how her behavior has completely broken our trust. My brother, who is usually the peacemaker, even tried to give her the floor first so she could explain herself. That was our mistake. She launched into the same story about her supposed medical issues. She needed the money for tests and treatments, she said, but this time, we were ready. We asked her specific, basic questions. Where did you go for these tests? What hospital? What doctor? What exactly are you being treated for? And guess what? She had no answers. Nothing. She stammered, got frustrated, and then said she could not remember any details. That was when it became painfully obvious she had been lying about the whole thing. When we called her out, she immediately switched tactics. Suddenly, it was no longer about her health, it was about her sacrifices. She started going on about how much she had done for us, how she gave up her life to raise us, and how we have all moved on and forgotten about her. She actually said, "I spent my whole life for you, and this is how you repay me?" The room went completely silent. Nobody knew what to say at first. Then my sister, who is usually the one to hold it together, snapped and said, "You do not get to steal from your grandkids because you feel unappreciated." That is when things exploded. Mom got defensive, accusing us of ganging up on her and making her out to be the bad guy. Meanwhile, we were trying to explain that this was not about her feelings. It was about what she did. The conversation kept going in circles, with her dodging responsibility at every turn. She refused to acknowledge that taking money from her grandkids was wrong. Instead, she kept playing the victim, saying she felt attacked and misunderstood. The real shocker came when Dad finally spoke up. He is not the kind of guy to raise his voice or get involved in conflicts. For years, he has been the one smoothing things over, keeping the peace. But this time, he had had enough. He told her, point blank, that she needed to stop lying and take responsibility. He admitted that he had let her get away with too much over the years, letting her take money from his wallet without saying anything because it was easier than fighting about it. But now, he said he could not ignore it anymore, not when her actions were affecting the rest of us, and especially not the grandkids. Hearing Dad say all that was a lot. On one hand, I was relieved he was finally standing up to her. On the other, it was heartbreaking to see how hurt and frustrated he was. You could tell this was not easy for him. Eventually, we managed to get through to some sort of agreement, if you can call it that. We told her that if she really has medical issues, she needs to get a full evaluation. No more vague excuses or conflicting stories. We also said that if she ever asks for money again, she has to be upfront about why she needs it and where it is going. Honestly, it felt ridiculous even having to say that out loud, but trust is completely gone at this point. We also suggested therapy, not just for her, but maybe for the whole family. Of course, she shut that down immediately. She said she does not need therapy and that we are the ones making her feel crazy. Typical. We did not push it too hard in the moment because the meeting was already tense enough, but it is definitely something we plan to revisit. Since the meeting, things have been weird. Mom is barely talking to any of us, and when she does, it is usually to complain about how ungrateful we are. She still has not apologized or shown any sign that she understands what she did was wrong. Meanwhile, Dad has been checking in with us more than ever. It feels like he is trying to make up for lost time, which I appreciate, but it is also kind of sad. He told me he feels guilty for enabling her behavior all these years, but I told him it is not his fault. Mom made her choices. All we can do now is try to move forward. As for me and my siblings, we are still figuring things out. None of us are ready to trust her again, and honestly, I do not know if we ever will. But we are united on one thing: we are not letting this slide. Protecting our kids and setting boundaries is the priority now. I wish I had a more satisfying update, but this is where we are. I will keep you posted if anything changes. Update 3. It has been a week since our family meeting, and I wanted to give an update on what has happened since then. Spoiler alert, things are not exactly better, but at least we are starting to get some clarity on what is really going on with my mom. As planned, my dad took my mom to get a full medical evaluation. He arranged everything, from the appointments to driving her there and back. Honestly, I think part of him was still hoping there might be some truth to her claims, even if the rest of us were skeptical. The results came back quickly, and guess what? She is perfectly fine. No signs of any serious medical issues, no reason to be concerned about her health. On the one hand, this was a relief because it meant there was nothing physically wrong with her. On the other hand, it confirmed what we already suspected. She lied. She used health problems as an excuse to justify her actions, and now that the truth is out, we are left with even more questions. After the results came in, Dad sat her down for a talk. He told her that the medical tests had shown nothing concerning and asked her to explain why she felt the need to lie about being sick. At first, she deflected, saying she must have been misdiagnosed or that something had been overlooked. But Dad was not having it. He pressed her, calmly but firmly, until she finally admitted the truth. There was no medical emergency. She never needed the money for tests or treatments. Instead, she said she had been feeling left behind and invisible in the family and did not know how else to get our attention. Hearing this was complicated. On the one hand, it was infuriating to think that she would resort to lying and stealing to deal with her emotions. On the other hand, it gave us some insight into what might actually be going on. For years, my mom's identity has been tied to being a mother. She raised 7 kids, and now that we are all grown and living our own lives, she feels like she no longer has a purpose. She said that when she sees us prioritizing our partners, our children, and even each other, she feels pushed aside and forgotten. Do not get me wrong, this does not excuse her behavior, not even close, but it does help explain why she has been acting out in such a destructive way. It is clear now that this is not just about money or even attention. This is a deeper emotional and psychological issue, and it is something we cannot fix on our own. After this conversation, my siblings and I had a long talk about what to do next. We all agreed that while we are angry and hurt, we cannot just ignore the underlying problem. It is clear that Mom needs professional help, not just for herself, but for the sake of the entire family. We started looking into counseling options and have found a few therapists who specialize in family dynamics and emotional support for older adults. The plan is to sit down with her in the next few days and present her with these options. Whether or not she agrees to go is another story. For now, we are trying to be as practical as possible. Dad has agreed to be more involved in managing her finances and making sure there is accountability moving forward. He has also started checking in with us more regularly, which honestly has been nice. It feels like he is finally stepping up in a way he has not before, and I think that is going to make a big difference in how we handle things as a family. As for Mom, she has been quieter than usual. She has not exactly apologized, but she has stopped complaining about how unfair we are being. Maybe she is starting to realize that we are not the enemy here. Or maybe she is just biding her time until the next blow-up, who knows? Either way, we are not letting our guard down. At this point, the priority is setting boundaries and making sure this kind of situation never happens again. We are all exhausted emotionally and mentally, but we are committed to doing what needs to be done. For our kids, for Dad, and yes, even for Mom. It is going to be a long road, but at least now we have a clearer picture of what we are dealing with. Thanks for sticking with me through this mess. I will keep you updated as things develop. Update 4, Mom's counseling and the real problem. It has been 2 months since my first post, and things have taken a slightly different turn. After weeks of pushing back, my mom finally agreed to see a counselor. I think a lot of us were expecting her to either bail on the appointments or go and not take it seriously. To her credit, she went, and now we are starting to understand what might be behind all of this. According to the counselor, my mom is going through something called a role crisis. Basically, she spent her whole life being mom. 7 kids, a household to run, it was her entire identity. Now that we are all grown and have our own families, she feels like she does not have a purpose anymore. She said she feels invisible and unneeded, like she has been pushed out of the center of the family. It is not an excuse, but it does explain why she has been acting out the way she has. The counselor also explained how this kind of emotional crisis can lead to destructive behavior, like lying or manipulating people to get attention. When Mom heard this, I think it was the first time she really acknowledged that her actions might be tied to something deeper. But let me be clear, this does not let her off the hook for what she did. Understanding her feelings is one thing, excusing her behavior is another. We have had a few family talks since then, and they have been a mix of progress and frustration. Mom has started opening up more about how she has been feeling, which is a step in the right direction. She said that she has felt replaced by our partners and kids, like she is no longer a priority. I get that feeling lonely or left out sucks, but stealing from her grandkids and lying to everyone was not the way to deal with it. One of my brothers put it perfectly when he said, "Mom, we are not blaming you for having these feelings, but what you did to us and our kids is not okay. You have to take responsibility for that." She did not argue this time, which is progress, but you could tell it was a hard pill for her to swallow. Part of her making amends is starting to take real steps toward accountability. For one, we asked her to start keeping track of her spending in a journal. She does not need to report every dollar to us, but this is more about her getting control over her own habits and proving to herself and to us that she can handle money responsibly. She has also agreed to return any cash she still has from what she took, though she admitted most of it is gone. Another suggestion from the counselor was for Mom to start building a life outside of being mom. This includes exploring hobbies, reconnecting with old friends, or even finding ways to volunteer in the community. At first, she was super resistant. She said she did not know how to make friends at her age or what she would even be good at. But my dad has been encouraging her, and it sounds like she is starting to consider trying out some local groups. For the rest of us, this whole process has been draining. We want to support her, but there is no denying the damage she has caused. Trust is not something you just rebuild overnight. We have all agreed that while we are here to help her, there are boundaries in place now, and if she crosses them again, there will be consequences. Dad has been stepping up more, which has honestly been one of the best parts of all this. He has always been the type to avoid conflict and let things slide, but he is starting to take a more active role in both his relationship with Mom and his support for the rest of the family. He checks in with us regularly now, and it feels like he is finally seeing just how much this situation has affected all of us. Mom, on the other hand, is a work in progress. Some days she seems genuinely remorseful and willing to change. Other days it feels like she is still trying to guilt trip us or make herself the victim. It is exhausting, but I guess that is just how this kind of thing goes. Change does not happen overnight, and I am trying to keep that in mind, even when it feels like we are going in circles. Right now, the priority is making sure this never happens again. We are focusing on holding her accountable, supporting Dad, and protecting our kids from being caught in the middle of this mess. I do not know what the future looks like for our family, but at least now it feels like we are starting to address the real issues. It is not perfect, and it is not pretty, but it is progress. Update 5. It has been a week since my last update, and I can finally share some positive news. My mom is starting to make changes. After weeks of resistance, deflection, and excuses, she seems to be taking the counseling seriously, and it is starting to show. The biggest step forward came just a few days ago. Mom sat down with the grandkids, my siblings' kids, and apologized. Not a half-hearted, sorry you feel that way, but an actual apology. She told them she was wrong to take their money, that she regretted it, and that she would never do anything like that again. It was emotional for everyone, especially the kids. They are still young, and seeing their grandmother own up to her actions meant a lot to them, and to us, honestly. After the apology, we had a family meeting to revisit some of the boundaries we set earlier. While we acknowledged the progress Mom has made, we also agreed that we are not ready to completely let go of the safeguards we put in place. For now, Dad is still keeping an eye on their finances, and she has agreed to continue being transparent about any money she handles. It is not about punishing her, it is about rebuilding trust, and that is going to take time. Another positive change is that Mom has started getting involved in the local community. She joined a group that organizes events for seniors like book clubs, craft workshops, and even a walking group. At first, she was hesitant, saying she did not think she would fit in or that people would judge her. But after a little nudging from Dad, and honestly probably some pressure from us, she went to a few events and ended up enjoying herself. These activities seem to be making a big difference. For the first time in years, Mom has something to look forward to outside of family drama. She told me the other day that being around people her age who share similar experiences has made her feel less isolated. It is a small step, but it feels like a meaningful one. That said, we are still approaching all of this with caution. Progress is not linear, and we know there is always the possibility of setbacks. While we are proud of her for taking these steps, we are also mindful that it is still early days. Trust is not something that can be rebuilt with a few apologies and a couple of social outings. It will take consistent effort over time. For now, though, I am feeling cautiously optimistic. Seeing her make amends with the kids, take accountability, and start rebuilding her life outside of us has given me hope that things can get better. I will keep you all updated as we continue to navigate this, but for now, it feels like we are moving in the right direction. Update 6. This will likely be my final update on this situation, as things have finally started to settle down and we are all beginning to move forward. It has been a long and exhausting road, but I can genuinely say that progress has been made, and the dynamic in our family feels healthier than it has in a long time, and Mom is in a much better place now. She has been consistently attending her local club, and it has done wonders for her. She has made friends there, something I never thought I would see given how resistant she was at first. She has started participating in activities like group walks, crafting, and even helping organize small events. For the first time in years, she has something meaningful outside of our family to focus on, and it is clear that it has had a positive effect on her mood and outlook. One of the biggest shifts has been in how she interacts with the family. While she is still a work in progress, her relationship with us, and especially with the grandkids, has improved significantly. She has made an effort to be more present without overstepping boundaries, and she has been working to rebuild the trust that was broken. It is not perfect, and I am not sure it ever will be, but it is better. One thing I have really appreciated is her willingness to take responsibility for her actions. In the past, she would have deflected or made excuses, but now she seems to genuinely understand the impact of what she did. She has apologized multiple times, not just to the kids, but to all of us, and she has stuck to the boundaries we set regarding finances. Dad continues to keep a close eye on things, but she has not given us any reason to believe she is slipping back into old habits. As for me, I feel a lot lighter than I did a few months ago. The stress of dealing with all of this had been weighing on me in ways I did not even fully realize. Now that things are starting to stabilize, I have been able to shift my focus back to what really matters: my kids, my family, and creating a positive environment for them to grow up in. That is not to say everything is perfect, far from it. There are still moments of tension, and I think it will take a long time for the scars of this experience to fully heal. But for the first time in a long time, it feels like we are heading in the right direction. I know there is no one-size-fits-all solution to family issues like these, but I am grateful we were able to get to this point. It took a lot of hard conversations, uncomfortable truths, and difficult choices, but in the end, I think it was worth it. Thank you to everyone who has followed along and shared advice or just listened to this wild ride. It has meant a lot to have a place to vent and process everything. If there is one thing I have learned from all of this, it is that families are messy and complicated, but they are also worth fighting for, within reason, of course. For now, I am choosing to focus on the good, and I am hopeful that this will be the start of something better for all of us.